Welcome back to another episode of the Untold. We're going to be joined today by a guest who will walk us through what it takes to be confident in your everyday life. I'm your host, Lujain AlAtheri.
And I'm your host, Abdullah AlHendyani, and of course, Lujain. We're going to be having Oraib AlFozan, who is a confidence and communication coach, which are, I'd imagine, it's the two areas are where a lot of people suffer when it comes to social, skills, right? Communication and confidence is such an integral part of the personality, and a lot of people have weaknesses in those. So it's going to be an important episode to talk all about that.
I agree. I think a lot of people suffer in these aspects, and it's very normal. Even very confident people will feel self-doubt or insecurity some days. So to talk to someone who's kind of made it their life goal to help people out of these situations, I think we're going to learn a lot of things.
We are going to learn a lot of things, so let's not, overdo it. Let's not wait any longer. We're going to take a break, so come back and sit down with her. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, on The Untold. So thank you for joining us. But again, most importantly, thank you, Oraib AlFozan, for being our guest tonight on The Untold.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's honestly great to have you. And I wanted to ask you, because you are a confidence and communications coach, so growing up, were you always so self-assured?
Definitely not. I think that's probably why that became such a passion project of mine. I think as a child, I was very meek, very timid, very quiet. In fact, I was very much complimented on how quiet I was. But I think when you start to grow up and you realize that doesn't really serve you, it kind of became my mission to change that. And now I'm helping people do the same.
MashaAllah. I'm always fascinated by people who find their way, through different circumstances. Because for a lot of people who knew me before being on this program, I rarely talk, right? Outside these places, I don't think I say a single word. But, it's always communicating with people is always a skill. So have you found that skill to be within you, a long time ago, the communication process and the self-confidence process, or did you find them along the way?
I would say it was in me, but I found them along the way as well.
Okay.
So it's like a two-way thing. And quite frankly, it was, when you're a child, especially our old generation, you're always being told, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. Stop
Yeah.
asking why, because I said so. But when you start to grow up and you're like, wait, I need to speak up, I need to advocate for myself. And me being quiet and timid is not really helping me. And then you start to gain that confidence slowly when you, I would say, hit rock bottom. That's when you start to go, no, I need to change this. I need to fix this. I need to work on this. So I think that was one of the biggest things that made a turning point for me.
Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I actually was also very shy growing up, very quiet. I would have been called timid. Pleasure to have in class,
Oh yeah.
100%. But I was so shy. I preferred to just read my books. I didn't like talking to people that much. Unless I was with my very best friends or like super close family, I was considered like she doesn't speak.
Yeah.
But over time, that really changed, like especially when I went to uni and I was able to kind of live more independently, it really helped me get out of my shell and like become more myself. That's the thing I think you were saying, like it's within you all this time. But growing up, you get kind of stuck inside yourself a bit sometimes, especially when there are so many rules and so many ways of being and all these different things and facets of, life. But at one point, as you said, you have to kind of find it. You have to kind of grow into it. And it's different for everybody how that comes about. So for you, when did you decide to become kind of a coach in this?
So back to that rock bottom part, like when you start to realize that it's not serving you and you start to realize people are getting ahead of you because they have confidence and they're able to speak their mind, they're able to express themselves, they don't let people bully them. So that was a big factor for me, the bullying and everything. And then you realize, no, I don't like this. I don't want this to be my life. And as I was growing up and changing different careers, I started studying psychology. I was obsessed with it since high school. And then you realize to be confident, you need to feel safe. And that safety is not always going to be provided for you by your environment. You have to create that safety within.
Yeah.
And during COVID, when everything started closing down on all of us, I started enrolling myself in courses to get through the time. But then I found myself in coaching and I found that this field is actually really helpful. And it helped translate what I was trying to work on with myself into tools that can help other people as well. So this was what made me really start with my journey.
And speaking of your journey, I think there's a fine line of difference between coaching and therapy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So how would you go about separating the two, and how do you educate people about which is which?
So this one is definitely the constant question I get. Is it like therapy? Is it the same thing? No, it's definitely not. Therapy is much deeper, and it requires someone who's actually gone through clinical training. They've actually done the time, they've gotten supervision, they've gotten the degrees and the certifications required. They go into the past. They go into the nitty-gritty places that most people would not know how to deal with or navigate. So they deal with a lot of that in terms of what happened to you, why did this happen, what do you need to do about it, and then they help you. But for coaching, we deal with present to future, your goals. So it's a very goal-oriented, focused session when you're in a coaching session, because it's like, I want to work on my confidence. I want to learn how to set boundaries. I want to be a career woman. I want to be a working mom who's successful. We help you work towards that without going into those places. So it's very different.
That's so interesting. So in general, when people say that they lack confidence, what is that kind of more reflecting? What's underneath that statement?
So the lack of confidence, I would say maybe lack of safety, lack of understanding of yourself. You don't really know what you stand for. You don't know what your values are. You don't know where your boundaries are. And so you enter the world and you really don't know how to present yourself, because if I don't know my values, what am I fighting for? What am I working towards?
That's so true.
And if I don't know what my boundaries are, how do I know how to respond to situations? So if someone in the middle of a session were to talk to me rudely, if I don't know that that's a boundary for me, that's a big no, how will I speak up and be like, hey, I don't accept that, with confidence? So when we start to learn like, no, this is my boundary, you do not touch this line, the minute something happens, you fully feel confident to say, I'm sorry, I don't accept that. And you don't feel guilty afterwards.
Yeah. But then for people who don't really have, that innate confidence, they are pushovers who are afraid of hurting the other people's feelings, even if they are stepping on their boundaries. Like, what are the signs that can be within a person that, are telltale signs that, oh, this person is struggling to show their confidence, is struggling to, stand on their confidence and show it to other people?
Definitely telltale signs, very quiet, very accepting, very much people-pleasing. They say yes a lot. They never want to say no. And then they have those moments and you'll know these people, they blow up and it's so sudden. And you never know what the cause is. But it's because of all this resentment and, bitterness. It's like, I'm saying yes, but I'm not feeling comfortable. And then you just snap over something so small. So I would definitely urge people to check in on your quiet friends every now and then. Yeah.
Honestly, that makes so much sense to me, because I have luckily been a person who's kind of always been good at setting my own boundaries, even though I was very shy. It was more just from, I think, not wanting people to talk about me, or I like to kind of be a wallflower more than anything else. I think like the safety, I felt safer being in the background, But I had many friends who were more like people pleasers. And even with me, like, because I learned in my like university days and everything to kind of set boundaries and be myself and focus on that fine line between this is what I can be okay with and this is not, I expected it from the people around me. So I would be very honest or upfront about things, but because they were people pleasing, they would agree with me and go along with it until the point came that they blew up. And I would be shocked, because it's like, where did this come from?
Yes.
You seem fine until this point. Why did you agree with all of this? Why did you take it, so to speak, if it was something that bothered you? So how can people kind of get out of that?
Ooh, story of the century, I would say, honestly, because it's so difficult, especially when you're working on yourself.
Yeah.
You started speaking up, you're starting to come into your own power, you're available and you're being visible, but then the people around you are not.
Yeah.
And then they blow up on you and you didn't even realize that they were so unhappy or upset. So then it's like, okay, but they need to do the work. I cannot fix someone else. And this is where it becomes, well, how much of this is my responsibility and how much of it is theirs?
Yeah.
So
How do you draw that line? I think a lot of us always feel guilty about the emotions of other people, you know, especially if it's someone really close to you. You're like, oh, I feel bad that you were feeling this way and I didn't know, but you didn't tell me. So how was I going to know? You said you were okay with it. So it's a really difficult kind of complex situation. But
absolutely.
how can you tell the responsibility for both sides, I guess?
I guess in this case, depending on your relationship, I guess, and how dear they are to you, if you know that they are the kinds who won't speak up, knowing how to ask them questions to check in to see if they really are okay, and sort of giving them the safety to say no with you. So over time, they might adjust and do the work themselves. But I still cannot go the full mile and be like, no, you have to speak up. You have to be more confident. It's their work. So I have to disregard that. I have to not take that as my responsibility. Otherwise, that's going to be a very heavy burden and very useless outcomes as well. I have a lot of dear people to me that do the same thing. And the blow-ups are always very, whew,
Yeah.
you did not see that coming. But then it's like, okay, I wish you used your words. I would be totally fine with it. You know, like I'm quite an understanding person, but they also need to feel the safety themselves. So this is not something I can create for them except to try to make it possible.
Yeah.
But they need to do the rest.
And also speaking about doing the rest, you know, you're working with someone who is very shy, like, you know, a rough estimate. And I know it's a case by case kind of point, but how long does it take the regular person to develop a little bit of confidence, you know, to change and have a little bit, you know, say bravado?
In my personal experience with my current clients, between few weeks to a few months, depending. And it's usually because of the aha moment they get where they're like, oh, I was thinking about this the wrong way. Or, oh my God, that wasn't so bad when I tried it. And then they try it again and again and they feel more confident. Because one thing I always say is you do not get confidence by waiting for the confidence. You get it by taking action. So you'll do it scared, do it while you're shaking, do it while your butterflies are rolling around in your stomach. But when you start to see the evidence, your brain collects it and says, she did it. She's capable. So your saboteurs sort of take a side break and they stop bothering you and they're like, she's got this, she got the wheel, so it's okay. So you kind of start to build that confidence through action. And so that's why. But for the ones who take months, it's usually when they have too many issues that they still need to work through.
Yeah. And, you know, also, this reminds me of a little bit of a funny anecdote between me and my sister. One time I saw a book that she had, which was How to Say No. So I was like, you know, why would you need a book to tell her how to say no? You know, you just say no. But then when I read a little bit of the book, it was actually about, you know, building the confidence to say no. It was more about the journey to change your personality from someone who is saying, okay, to everything and taking everything on your shoulders to being like, okay, no, this is my boundary. Yeah. With that being said, we are going to take a very quick break. We'll come right back after this one.
And we're back from that short break. So we were just talking about how people need to be able to build the confidence in themselves. Maybe it's a thing of safety. Maybe it's having the right support system. But I wanted to ask you, because nowadays, so many things are online. We have social media. We're talking to everybody through apps, through phones. Do you think that's affected our ability to have kind of social skills or build confidence? Or is it the opposite? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
I would definitely say it's a double-edged sword, you know, and anything that's getting introduced to us, they have the pros and the cons, no matter what you introduce, like, for example, AI, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is with social media, and you'll notice this, like, look at comments people leave. They feel confident to do that, but under a pseudonym. They're not using their real name and their real face, and they're saying interesting things, but try to speak to them in real life, they won't say the same things, right? So it's making people have a false sense of confidence, I would say. And then another thing that affects you is the comparison.
Yeah.
When you're comparing yourself to other people and you're only comparing yourself to their highlight reels, if you're thinking about it, like I choose what I show on social media. So why are you comparing yourself to me? You don't know what's in the background. You don't know what's underneath. You don't even know if I'm actually this person, right? So that comparison is the thief of joy. Let's put it that way. So I would say if people are using social media, be mindful of what you're consuming, use your critical thinking skills and be like, yeah, okay, I'm seeing one side of this person, but I don't have to be this person. Because you might be comparing your chapter 25 to someone's chapter 340.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It is. And also, the dangers of social media is that for younger audiences, younger kids, they don't really know,
Yeah.
the steps it took to get that way,
Exactly.
right? Because, for example, I drive a really bad car, right? It's one of the worst cars you can imagine. And my younger cousins come with Ferraris or Mercedes. It's like, why
Oh.
isn't your car like that? I'm like, okay, if you give me the money for it,
Yeah,
I'm gonna buy
absolutely.
that car. But the point is they see all of these brands, these
Yeah.
lavish lifestyles, these people who have gone through so many trials, but they're showing the latest stages of their trials.
Exactly.
And then the kids are like, oh, but this is the regular life. I'm like, no, we got to teach them. No, there are so many steps there, but that's an entirely different kind of topic. I do want to go back to a point you made, is that you took psychology classes. So how did those come about and influence your coaching style, your approach to coaching?
So when I started the coaching courses, I realized there's something missing. Not too much, but there was something missing. And I felt like there was this concept of, okay, ethically, how do we practice coaching without blurring the lines and like actually helping people? And so I did my master's in psychology. I wanted to go deeper into the human psyche, the human brain, the human mind. How do people express their emotions and work on it? And it impacted my coaching because now I actually sit with my clients and I go, oh, this is not for coaching, this is for therapy. And I'm able to differentiate that and I'm able to help them with that. And I refer them to the correct people. Another thing is being able to know when they're saying that they're working on something, where it's coming from. And I'm not a therapist, so I'm not going to go into why they got that way. I'm going to help them get out of it.
Yeah.
So that has helped me tremendously.
I mean, that's so interesting, be able to kind of have both kind of point of views almost. And being able to kind of see somebody and be like, oh, this is a different kind of issue. You need to actually see a proper therapist for this because this is a much deeper issue than one I can coach you out of.
Exactly.
You need to first address these things.
Exactly.
But then there are some people you can kind of be like, okay, you're having these problems. We can take these steps for you to get out of it. And it's something that we can do. And you also work with both teens and adults, right?
Yes.
So what's it like? How do you approach both of them? Because they come from very different mindsets, I
Ooh.
think.
This is like a huge generation gap.
Yeah.
And how you speak to them also makes a difference. And now with the new words and terminologies, and you have to keeping up with it. Like
Yeah, I
CBD,
can't
I
keep
still
up.
don't know what it means.
Can't keep up with some things anymore. My brother says things and I'm like, sure. I
Yeah,
don't know what you're saying.
exactly.
Is that good or bad? I don't know.
I was like 6, 7, what do you mean? Like, okay, I'm like, whatever. And so when it comes to teenagers, I like to involve their parents. So I always make sure that, okay, the teen actually wants to be there, because if they don't, then I cannot work with them. That's first of all. And working with them, it's so different. Their goals are very different, because they're not in the workspace or university yet. They're still in school. So it's like the world is your oyster. So their dreams are so different. And then working with adults, this is where it becomes interesting, is because they're regretting a lot of stuff that they wish they had done when they were teens. And so it's just finding a way that I meet them where they are to help them get to where they want to go. And most of my clients come in for confidence. They want to come in to learn how to communicate. Some teens come in because they want to learn, how can I tell my parents this is what I want? And I don't want what they're asking me to do without breaking my family. Like, it goes to that level. And it's very obvious, because you have your parents that go, I know what's best for you. You're going to be a doctor. And then the kid goes, but I want art.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a struggle. So with teens, I work with parents and them. So I tell them, if you're wanting to work with me, I need to work with you as well.
Which one of those groups would you say is the one more accessible to building their confidence? Because I'd imagine, adults have so many years of buildup of lack of confidence. So, it's harder to get the hammer and, chop away at those. But at the same time, children and teenagers are so easily influenced by the decisions of other people.
Yeah.
So which group of those you find more, I don't want to use the word easy, but manageable when it comes to building their confidence?
Surprisingly, it's not about their age.
MashaAllah.
And it's never been about their age. It's about their capacity to sit with the truth of who they are showing up as.
Yeah.
Like, can I admit that this is my issue? Do I have accountability or not? And goes the same for the teen and the adult. So if they're not accountable, they don't know how to be like, yeah, I'm going to own this. I don't do practice. I'm going to own this. I do lie a lot. I'm going to own this. I flip out and I say the wrong things. If they don't own that, it's going to take longer to get there.
Yeah.
No, that does make a lot of sense. And something actually I want to ask you about. There are a lot of people who are considered very high-performing individuals, and they're overachievers and perfectionists, and they get a lot of things done. And from the outside, they look like they're doing everything perfectly. They look like they have it all figured out. But why is it that these people sometimes are the ones that struggle with self-doubt and kind of issues the most? Like, how does that work?
There's an interesting book I read. It's called High Functioning Anxiety.
Okay.
And what it talks about is these people, this dynamic of people who were raised and brought up in a way where they say, my achievements is my identity. So if I don't achieve, where is my identity, right? So they learn to equate their work to their value and their worth. And so they're constantly working on that. And nothing is ever going to be enough, by the way. They'll get the degree and be like, yalla, what's next? They don't even celebrate. And usually what would make a person go through that and they go through all that self-doubt is because they care so much about maintaining that image. So this goes back again to safety. Can I feel safe enough in my body to show up as I am and say I'm enough?
Yeah.
I can still strive for more, but I'm capable of celebrating my current success, my current stages. So this is the part that matters.
That's why there are like a few articles, or however you want to call it, where they talk about the dangers of success. Because, the feeling of emptiness after reaching your goal is a real thing. Post, success, I'd say depression is very, happening, right? For a lot of people, once they reach their end goal, it's like, okay, what's next? I don't have anything. And they fall into that kind of trap line. But when you're dealing with, high performing individuals, like, how do you manage to tell them, no, you are making great progress, you can build your confidence, because they are by themselves, they've reached so many highs, and now you're trying to tackle something that is so deep within their layer of personality. So how does that process go?
So for this, and I also should clarify one thing as well about coaching, I definitely do not tell them what to do.
Yeah.
And I don't tell them what I think because I don't want them to rely on my validation.
Yeah.
So I'll ask certain questions like, what makes this achievement not enough for you? Or why do you feel you need that too? Like when they go, I need to do the next degree, and I just get them to reflect. I'm like, what have you accomplished so far? Let's list them together. And then they start giving, and they're like, I've done all this, and it's within 1 year. So when they start to realize that, it's like they see it themselves. That's why coaching is so powerful, because they're the ones who's getting the awareness from within. So it's quite interesting.
So is the mindset or the way you look at things, like you said, they don't focus on what they've achieved. Is that really like one of the biggest differences or things that can change a people's kind of view of themselves?
Depends on the person, I would say. But yeah, a lot of times it's, what am I looking at? So if I keep striving for more, what am I missing? That's one. Another thing is, if they've only reached in life for certain things that give them that feeling of success, they don't have a wholesome life, that's where the emptiness comes later. So we talk about balance, right? And it's not about 50-50. There's no such thing as 50-50. But I also make sure I invest in my life in all facets. So it's holistic. I invest in my family, my friends, my education, my work. So that way, when something is finished, I have this to enjoy. I have the next thing to enjoy. So it's like a full life. But if you're only looking at one direction, that is when that becomes a problem.
It is. And speaking of problems, I do want to leave you with one last question. For people who know that they have, lack of self-confidence, they have confidence issues. So the awareness part is resolved. They know that they are within that group of people. What is something you can tell them that can improve, or they can pursue to improve that kind of, personality trait?
So I want to say this word, and it's coming up on my mind right now, the word audacity.
Oh,
Okay, so the definition is literally just being bold, being fearless, and sometimes even much of a risk taker where it could be dangerous. Forget the negative part. Let's talk the bold part, where if you're trying to hack your system because you're not confident, create an alter ego. Name it. You know, like, so for mine, for example, is Veronica speaking right now. So it's just this part of you where you go, I want to show up like this. What does she look like when she speaks? What does she dress like? What is she saying? What is she really about? And then you show up as that person. And slowly that is going to be the version that you become. So that's one thing that they can do.
Well, you know, they always say fake it till you make it,
Exactly.
you know? A lot of people think super confident people are always confident, but I mean, it's really normal to be nervous. It's normal to have doubts. It's just showing up anyways, right?
Exactly.
And doing the thing.
Which is collecting evidence for your brain.
I love
Yeah.
that. Well, I want to thank you for joining us today because it was a really amazing conversation. I want to thank you for sharing because on this issue, I think it's so important for people to kind of address these issues and find their best self, you could say. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And with that, we are going to take a quick break.
well, that's it from us, Lujain and Abdullah, on the Untold. Of course, that was an amazing episode, highly educational, very informative. I did enjoy it.
Me too. I love seeing how also learning psychology helped her to kind of differentiate between people who need proper therapy, people who just kind of need that push in being coached into their confidence, and how you have to really kind of work on yourself and choose to work on yourself and focus on yourself in order to achieve the confidence and, you know, thrive in your everyday life.
Yeah, and I do love how Oraib emphasized the idea that she doesn't tell people what to feel, how to act, what to do. You know, she's not in control of their emotions, but she's more of a guiding hand, right? She's telling them the path, and the next is up to you, right? She's following people how to be better, which I think is an approach to coaching and make people better that works, you know, fundamentally better.
Everything she said was super enlightening and so interesting, and really great to see kind of the perspective behind the scenes of how someone with the knowledge of all this stuff might look at it. And I really hope people will learn to kind of just kind of go for it. Fake it till you make it, you know?
Yeah. Basically, that's the motto of today's episode. So, with that being said, that's it from us, the team of The Untold. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye and see you next time.